Okay, in this video we're going to be tying another musky fly. This particular musky fly is going to be like a Firetiger perch and still designed to be cast on something as light as an 8 or a 9 weight. So for it we have our hook. My hook of choice for musky flies, at least of this size, is actually a Gamakatsu spinnerbait hook, size 5/0. A little bit of a different hook, but I really like the shape, the profile, and the gap, and the hook strength itself. So I've got just some 210 black thread, and so we're going to go ahead and start putting this on and working our way down. This is going to be similar to our last musky fly, and that we're going to start with the flash tail. But the flash for this one is going to be some perch Flashabu. So really it's just a hodgepodge of different colors. We're going to take a healthy amount because flash is good. So about that amount, and we're going to end up doubling this over to give us more. Alright, so we've doubled it over. Take and put that up on top. Now I'm going to put one wrap in front of it just so that it's not going to come undone on me. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work it around the hook shank. I don't like when everything's all just flat up on top. I want more of a 360 around it if I can. And so this allows me to kind of get away with doing that. I can make it flutter a little better. Of course, that could just be what I tell myself, you know? But hey, it makes me want to fish it, and it has a greater chance of catching fish. Okay, so our tail material is in place, and we can see it kind of comes off a little bit all around. The next part is I want to put in my hackle feathers. So I'm going to put in, since this is a Firetiger perch, I've got some Grizzly Chartreuse barred hackle. I've already prepared it, so that should just be ready just to tie on. I'm trying to do this fairly controlled. That's not too bad. Come back over. And do the other side the same way. Alright, so they're laying on fairly nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some clean wraps over top. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of super glue. This is a ultra liquid control instead of more of a gel. So it's a little bit thinner. And just put that around 2-3 predators and all. Alright, I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll come back and I'll start putting on some weight. Alright, so it's dried, and I'm ready to put on some weight. So I've got some 0.025 lead-free wire. You can use whatever size you want. I'm just going to go ahead and start putting this on. And I'm going to just kind of trap it. Make it a little easier. So just a couple of wraps. That's good. So the head of this fly is going to have some weight because of the epoxy that we put on it and the head cement. So by putting weight back here, it actually helps the fly to sink level. That's one of the main reasons why I do this additional wire wrap, even though I'm going to cast this on a sinking line. Helps the fly to really sit in the water the way I want and swim the way I want. So anyway, I've got these debarbing pliers. By the way, I did use that on this hook. It's one of the reasons why I like these hooks. And I also will use this to help push the wire in place, tuck in those sharp bits. So then I can come with my thread, kind of go over top in these diagonal patterns. That way the thread doesn't just slip through. Alright, that's not going anywhere. Okay. So the next part is we're going to want to start building up our body with bucktail. So I want to lay down a thread base before I do that. We need to make sure that we leave room for the head of this fly. So I'm going to tie in the bucktail down about here. And that leaves plenty of room for the head of our fly. So we're going to do this first with some Chartreuse bucktail, and we're going to put this both above and below. And there's a really easy way to do that. So I've got my bucktail here, and I've measured it and cut it. So it's going back 3/4 length tail. Now you could do it 2 sections, tie on the top section, tie on the bottom section, and that'll get a nice flaring in a vertical fashion. Or what you could do, and to clean up the ends of these, you just come in and you put in 1, 2. Now those weren't tight, and then you can push this down. When you do that, that gives us that kind of 360 coverage. And so now I can really crank down, secure that in. So now I can just kind of mess with this, pull the parts that need to go below, and the parts that need to be above, and I actually have this nice collar all the way around. And that's what I want with this Chartreuse. So I'm going to bring my thread back. And now I want to put in a little bit of undercolor. So flip that up. And I'm going to do this nice fire orange. Alright, so I've got my orange. And you notice I don't have a lot. This is an accent, right? So I don't want a ton of it because I want to try to keep bulk down. And it's about as long as my Chartreuse on the bottom here. And so I'm going to go ahead and screw this in. About 2 loose wraps now. This time, instead of pushing down, I'm bringing it up because I want it just underneath. I want it on the belly of the fly and only on the belly. So I also have my length extend a little bit beyond where I previously tied in. What that's going to do is help give me a ramp so that when I scare this down, it'll give me a better taper. And then I'll end up with this huge hump of material. So that's our orange. Kind of pull that back. It's a nice accent. So I want to do the same thing on the top. For the top, I want to actually do some red. So I'm going to do the exact same amount on the top as what I just did with the orange. Alright, so we've got our red cut. We're going to have it go back again, about as long as the Chartreuse. So we'll do 2 loose wraps, let it hang. Make sure we get everything together. Come back. Secure down. And we've got a very nice controlled front portion along here. That's actually rather important for the next step. So I've got this nice Orange on bottom, red on top. I got my tail, but I want to have an accent on the sides as well. But before that, because I'm actually going to be putting in some orange Grizzly Hackle, this is getting a bit round, and I'm going to flatten that out. I'm going to give a nice flat spot for my hackle feathers to lay. So my debarbing pliers, I highly recommend you get a pair, because they're so useful for so many different things. With deceivers, and you want to put on eyes, making that flat spot. When you put on hackle, to give it a good base for it to lay on so it lays better. And most importantly, for debarbing hooks as well. They work really well. You don't have to worry about ruining your vise trying to debarb with it. Just get a nice pair. And they don't necessarily have to be for fly tying. You could use a pair of pliers or whatever, but have one on your bench. Okay, so we have our flat spots. So now what I want to do is I want to do my orange. Now, ideally I want to do it with the nice vibrant color side out versus the dull side. And I didn't pre-measure this, so I wanted to make sure I did it made to measure. And I'm only going back, again, about the same length. So I've got this kind of taper of bucktail material. So about to there. So I've got it measured. I've got it trimmed, and trying to make this lay flat, I'm going to use the debarb pliers again. Try to flatten the stem out. That's the exact way I did the tail feathers too. Just got them in place, put on not super tight reps right in the back, and then tighter as I go up front. Come back a little bit looser, and they lay nice and flat and together. So now I need to do the other side. Alright, so that is now secured. And we're going to back up front. Awesome. So now I've got most of the back done. I want to start working on the head of this fly. And so the first thing I'm going to do, finish out my thread base. Come back. And I've got this body tubing I've already cut, black. And I'm just going to put this in place. Now, if you really want this to hold and not pop off, one of the things you can do is put just a small amount of this super glue on, and it's really going to help weld it into place. Stop it from spinning, popping off on you. It makes it really helpful when we go to secure it later on. And this is where the strong thread comes in handy. And I go all the way up, just behind the eye, and I come back. Okay. And I like to give that a second to dry, just to really make sure that it's welded in place before I start working the next bit. Alright, so this is nice and dry, so now what I want to do is bring in the top profile, and then I'll go ahead and I'll fill in the collar around the head before we fold this material back. So what I want to do is I actually want to put some Peacock Hurl over the back, so I'm just going to grab some. Okay, so I got a bundle. Not super huge, but something that's going to give a nice profile. And I want this to come, again, most of the way back. Probably something about there. And there's some shorts in there, so I'll take that one out. And try to have them mostly all along. I like a little bit of varying length, so that looks good. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, kind of measure that. Cut it. I like to lay that down so it gets nice and secured. That's our thread back. And do the same way, kind of 1, 2 loose wraps, pinch my bundle together, 3, 4, and I'm going to come in and flatten. That looks good. Right now I can start cranking down. Alright, now Peacock curl is a crazy thing. Alright, it's real stiff. Sometimes it wants to stick way up. But it, believe it or not, has something similar to ribbon. If you've ever, tied a gift or a package, you can actually curl it. So if you just run your scissors along it, you can get it to curl back. Do that one more time. And so now that wants to taper back with the fly itself. And because I put it on a little bit flat, it gives it a nice top profile. Okay. Alright, so now we're ready to actually build our kind of collar or our fly. And so I want to first put on some Maribu. And I've actually got 2 pieces of Maribu here. And I don't want it to come back far. Maybe to the barb of the hook at most, or to the hook point. So I'm going to aim for the hook point. And then kind of get it over top. 1 loose wrap, 2 loose wrap. Work it down. Rotary vise is helpful so you can see the back side. And then put on a couple secure wraps. Now I'm going to bend this forward or backward, depending on your orientation. Cut off the excess. And I want to clean up this bit up here. Alright, so that's looking pretty nice. But I also want to add a little bit more of a dimensional element. And I'm going to do that with a piece of Schlappen. So go ahead and tie that in. And start wrapping that around. I really want to fold this back as I go if I can, so I don't trap the fibers too much. I'm going to wrap this fairly tight around the same spot, advancing forward each time by maybe a stem length, because most of this is going to get pushed back anyway, so I don't need to go all the way up to the hook eye. All we're doing is getting these real nice webby fibers to kind of stick out. I like tying the feather in, dull side sticking forward, shiny side sticking back, because it makes the whole feather want to curl forward. And so then the head of this fly that we're going to put on, it's going to help push all that material towards the back. So let's go ahead and trap in our material. And we'll cut it, being really careful not to cut the thread. And kind of take some of these fibers. That one's a little too unruly. Kind of bring them back. Secure it in place. Alright. So that's going to lay nicely. The next part is to actually go ahead and put this back. So I like to kind of bend it back, getting these fibers start to separate. Take my lighter. Melt that in, so it's not going to come too apart on me. Now I can push it back. All right. And we can secure that down. And we are right behind the hook eye, as you'll see here in just a second. All right. So I want to make sure this thread does not come loose on me. So I have my super glue, and I'm going to put just a drop on top of this thread. One or two wraps, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my whip finish. Just a 4-turn, because that super glue's in there. It's going to weld these wraps in place. I'll pull it nice and tight. And give it a turn. So now we can push this back, and we'll have the head of our fly. And I kind of like to, so I push it all the way back, and I kind of bring it up just a bit, because I want this dense. And so now we have this nice kind of profile. We have this nice big head with fibers that want to push that way, so they'll pulsate, and nice gill plate. And we have our accents all the way around the fly, all the way back through the flash of our tail. So the next part I want to do is actually want to put on the eyes. For that, I've got some kind of living eyes. This is the ice-colored living eyes. I love them. Great multi-dimensional coloration in them. I love the iris in them. I just think they look really neat. So, adjust my vise so it actually stays put. And I'm going to drop a super glue on the back. They're never sticky enough. Press that down. All right. Do the other side. All right. So they're in place. So I'm going to come in with some UV. I'm going to build that first right behind the eye. This is the thin formula. I like the thin, it really penetrates down to help secure as well. We'll do the other side. Get these eyes in place. All right, next thing I want to do is this mesh allows water to flow right through it, and I don't want that. I want to cause a lot of disturbance when this fly goes through the water. So I'm just going to take and work my thin UV around the mesh. Doesn't need to be perfect. And just so it starts to fill everything in. Hit it with the light and let this cure. All right, so the bottom's done. We're going to do the top next. Same thing. Just kind of work our UV in. Doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, so we have our nice layer of UV all the way around. The eyes are now locked in place, and it's fairly water impermeable. But to finish this off and to help further protect the eyes and fill in the rest of the gaps, what we're going to do is we're actually going to use some high gloss head cement. And we're just going to work this around the fly. And this also helps take away any residual tackiness from that UV. And again, the rotary vise is really helpful for this part. You can do this without a rotary. I learned to tie on a regular, this stationary clamp vise, but the rotary sure does help. Okay, so we've got our head cement applied all the way around. And so now it's just a matter of letting this fly dry, and then it's ready to fish. And we'll, have this nice head up top that's really going to help push water out of the way, cause the disturbance, and then we have a good amount of flash to finish off the tail as the pattern goes through, to really entice and attract in, hopefully, that muskie or that pike, or even big bass. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully this inspires you to tie your own.